All right, this is slightly less horrible news. This is not bad news. This is actually a little bit of fun pop culture news. Tom Hanks is going to star as Mr. Rogers in You Are My Friend. And this is what the world needs, according to this USA Today article. Crazy Cat Lady, I'm doing good. How are you? Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers. It was meant to be. Hanks is attached to star as Fred Rogers from the pioneering children's television series Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the film You Are My Friend. Sony TriStar Pictures announced Monday, You Are My Friend, with its title taken from one of Rogers' signature songs, is inspired by a real-life friendship between Rogers and journalist Tom Junod. Junod is depicted as a cynical scribe who begrudgingly accepts an assignment to write a profile article on the iconic Mr. Rogers. He finds his life perspective transformed in the process. Cool. I'll totally go see this. I like Mr. Rogers. I do. I'm a huge Mr. Rogers fan. Fun fact, I went to high school next door to where Mr. Rogers was at least at one point filmed. I don't know if it was filmed there throughout the entire duration, but I went to high school right next to where Mr. Rogers was filmed. Yeah, because I grew up in Pittsburgh. And here's something interesting, too. This is something that they used to do in Pittsburgh back in the day when I was growing up. It used to be really fun, and it wasn't necessarily meant as an insult or a dig. It was kind of meant just to be satirical because everybody loved Mr. Rogers. Like, there wasn't... I've never met a person in Pittsburgh or elsewhere, but especially not in Pittsburgh because that was Mr. Rogers' home, where people were like, fuck that guy. Like, I've never encountered that. Because, like, why? Like, why would you... Mr. Rogers, this guy that just teaches kids and educates them and just, like, you know, like, why would you not like... So, anyway, you guys get the idea. But it was fun for punk rock flyers to have a cartoon Mr. Rogers on them. And then they'd have like a little like comic bubble and Mr. Rogers would be saying the name of the bands and the date and the venue. That was like a popular thing to do when I was growing up. I'm pretty sure I played in at least one shitty garage band that had at least one goofy Mr. Rogers flyer. And this is back in the day. This was pre-Photoshop, dating myself a little bit. Of course, I've been 27 since the year 1933, so I've been around a while, but this was like pre-Photoshop. So it used to be when you would like cut the letters out of magazines and paste them together and then make a copy of it, and that's how you made your flyers. I actually miss those days. Those flyers were cooler than what we have now. I don't care what anyone says. So yeah, Mr. Rogers parody flyers were quite popular. But it was out of love. Like, it was out of love and respect. It wasn't out of, like, we're punk rock, Mr. Rogers. No, it was like, dude, we grew up with Mr. Rogers, too, and we love him. And here's just a little bit of satire. And Mr. Rogers was a pretty cultured dude, too. I mean, he had opinions. He had his thumb on the pulse. He knew what was up. But he knew what his role was. He wanted his role, and he made no qualms about it. You know, back in the day when we were a little bit, like... you know, when we were a little more conservative as a nation than we are now in regards to certain things, and homosexuality was a lot more taboo than it is now. We have evolved some on that. We still have a long way to go. I know that. We still have a long, long way to go. But, you know, we've made some progress. My reason for bringing this up is there was a point in time, I believe in the 80s, where they interrogated Mr. Rogers on the ambiguity of his sexuality. And I think this points to him kind of being ahead of his time in many ways. Instead of getting like, whoa, no, I like women, or I don't like, or whatever. He just said, how is this relevant? Why are you bringing this up? What does this have to do with anything? And it's like, well, some of the stuff you say, you know, it comes off as, and he's like, look, I'm here to teach the children and to educate them. And at times, and at difficult times, to comfort them. You know, when war was going on, Mr. Rogers was the person that would be like, hey, it's going to be okay. He was the person that was that, you know, public figure that spoke to the children. No one else does that. Politicians don't do that. Other personalities don't do that. But that's what Mr. Rogers would do. So he said, look, that's my job. That's what I do. And I don't care what anyone thinks about me. He pretty much said, I don't give a shit what you think about me. I don't care if you think I'm straight, gay. I do not care. I just care that I'm helping those children. And I'm helping my audience. Fred Rogers definitely comforted me during my parents' divorce. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, he would do segments on stuff like divorce. He would do segments. Mr. Rogers taught me that breastfeeding is a totally natural thing. You know what I mean? And he would package that for kids. He would he would do that. He would say, I mean, he was light years ahead of his time in many ways. And I'm not totally fluent in all of his work. But you know, I grew up with it and I have some memories. So anyway, this movie seems like it'll definitely be interesting. I want to check it out. Thank you for sharing that, Maureen. I didn't know about that, but Tom Hanks is going to play Mr. Rogers in a movie, you guys. And we should all go see it and then talk about it. That'd be fun. Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.